It's
Are
Tanzania.
Hi, Tanzania. Do you have
Hi.
a video or do you just want to do audio?
Just audio.
Perfectly fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you able to see the PowerPoint?
Yes, I see the PowerPoint and I see you up in the corner there.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm actually gonna share this when I start with the group. My asthma actually flared up. So I'm feeling a whole lot better today.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I understand. My sinuses were acting up this morning. It's always in the morning time with my sinuses. So I completely understand just kind of just not being yourself, but you got to push through it and, you start feeling better as you kind of go on. So.
Exactly. Hi, Joyvina. How are you?
Hey, I am doing well.
Thank you for joining.
Absolutely. I think I forwarded the message to a couple of people too. So may have a couple more Michiganders.
Awesome. I see Pamela jumping on board with her audio. If you have video, I would love for you to turn on the video, but hey, folks might be in all sorts of situations, so I respect if you do not want to turn on your video as well.
Let's see.
Whatever works for you. I see Pamela there. Okay, there we go. I see your face. I see someone by the name of Shanita Colbert just tapped on. Elenia. Oh, I have a lot of, Europe is totally representing. Europe LA is representing on this call. Elenia, you look beautiful.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good.
It's so good to see you.
Good to see you as well. We have a few folks that are still hopping on.
Okay.
I'm actually going to record this because I'm gonna put it on my website so that you all can distribute it and share it. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get started because I like to be respectful of time. I am going to record this session so that it can be shared and used with other folks. Hi, Aaron. So if you want to do us all a favor and mute yourself, and then during the times where I'll be inviting in some feedback and some connection, you can feel free to unmute yourself. For those that I do not know, my name is Dr. Anise Fisher, and I am the owner of Developing Capacity Coaching and the Be Free Woman. With both of these organizations, I work with women and I work with organizations on inner healing work and advancing equity and inclusion. I also teach a class at American University called Exercising Conscious Leadership, and I oversee their coaching components for it. So thank you so much for joining me. Hi, Tachi. There's so many wonderful faces, those that I recognize.
Hi, Dr. Anise.
Hi, Tina. Oh, this is so beautiful. You all are gonna, you're touching my heart. Hi, Tina. So I'm so excited to come on and share with you all some resources. I really just felt it impressed upon my heart as we all are navigating this pandemic. How can I take my coaching skills and use that as a gift to other people in the world? I realize that some of us, aren't in coaching or therapeutic relationships that can help us process what's actually going on. And because of that, I wanted to offer this session. I want to say one thing up front, and then I'm going to hop right into it. Part of what I have experienced as a result of this pandemic is a flare up of my asthma. So know that whenever I present, I get really excited. So I might have to slow down. Don't be alarmed. I'm okay. My asthma is under control. I've been doing my breathing treatment. So I just wanted to give you that heads up as I'm going through this session in case I have to slow down for a little bit. So
Thank you.
this is going to be an interactive session, so I encouraged everyone to have a journal with you. If you have your video, please turn on your video so that we can interact with one another. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I shared with folks that I'm going to make a copy of this available, so it is being recorded. I will place it on my website and you'll be able to share it with other people. Hi, Sarah. So the first thing I want to do is to ground us in this space. So I want you to take out a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle of your paper. On the left side, I want you to write top of mind. On the right side, I want you to write mindful presence. I'll give you a second to grab your piece of paper. If you like to know on your computer, you can do it that way too. I guess I'm old school, I like to write stuff down. So on the left side, I want you to write top of mind, and I'm going to give you 60 seconds to write down everything that's on the top of your mind right now. I'm not gonna look at this. I'm not gonna ask you to share it. I just want you to write down everything that's on the top of your mind right now. It could be, do I have kale in my teeth? Why did she ask me to turn on my camera? I have my headscarf on, whatever it is. Write it down on the left side of the paper. I'll give you 60 seconds to do that, and I'll give you your next prompt. Take about 24 more seconds. Okay. Okay, now on the right side of your paper, you should have mindful presence at the top of it. And I want you to just answer this for yourself. Why is it important for you to be mindfully present at this moment on this day in your life? So why is it important for you to be mindfully present in this moment, this day in your life? Okay. About 25 more seconds. Kind of behind. And if you've not muted yourself, you could please mute yourself. That would be fantastic. Okay, so I wanted to start us off with this grounding activity because I realized, walking into this session with me as your coach and your facilitator, you all have whole lives outside of this hour time, and you're bringing things into this session. And so the top of mind really provides you an opportunity just to put everything down on a piece of paper Also, it serves as a spot as we are going through this presentation and you find yourself getting distracted, go ahead and just write that on the left side of the paper because that's what's popping up at the top of your mind. I want you to use the right side of the paper, the mindful presence, as a reset when you find yourself getting distracted, because this is what you have said is the reason why you need to be mindfully present at this moment. So this right side of the paper is just a way for you to reset. Don't judge yourself if your mind starts wandering. It happens to everybody. I just want to provide a mechanism for you to reset yourself. Feel free to borrow this. I used to use this when I worked for the man and manage people. It's a great way to start your meetings and ground everybody to be present in your meetings. So, any questions? Not, I'll get started. So again, for those of you who might have hopped on later, my name is Dr. Anise Fisher. A lot of my work focuses at the intersection of adult learning, developmental psychology, leadership, and equity. I'm going to be pulling on all of those different areas during this session. It's going to be an interactive session, so there will be times when I will have reflection prompts for you, time that I'll ask you to share if you feel comfortable sharing. But this is really meant to be a time and a space for us to look at some different ways of being during this pandemic. So when I sent out the RSVP, I posed a question to people asking them, what thoughts do you have? What questions do you have about this pandemic? And this is a Wordle of all of the different thoughts, words, questions that people were having as a result of this pandemic. So I want to pose a question to the group. What do you notice in this Wordle? And then if you can relate to anything in this Wordle and you feel comfortable sharing, feel free to do so. I'll just take a few responses.
They blame the Chinese people because of him. It's terrible. He's a real racist.
Someone please mute yourself. You're being recorded. Okay. What do people notice in this Wordle? Supporting others. Now I know some of us might be new to the Zoom features. So if you have the chat box, feel free to open the chat box and you'll see folks putting things in there. So supporting others. What else do you notice about the pandemic thoughts? Uncertainty. The colors. Okay. Emotions. Yeah. Okay. Ambiguity. Some thoughts feel indirect opposite to others. Exactly. Tina, I want to pick up on that. You see, there's contradictions throughout it. This idea of resting, productivity, uncertainty, the shifting of expectations, supporting other people. How am I going to maintain my energy? How do I do all this with my kids as well? And I want to say your kiddos are welcome in the background. They are not barred from this. I realize that you all have families. So if your young ones pop in, we welcome them into the space. Anxious thoughts. Exactly. Okay. Thank you all for sharing that. So this is what you all listed as your initial thoughts. One of the first things I want to say for our time together is the importance of owning where you are and honoring how you feel. This is not a time for us to stuff down, in our boxes, any emotions that we feel. We're going through an unprecedented time. We've never lived through a pandemic before. And so what we're experiencing is what we call an adaptive challenge, which basically means we're being moved into a situation where we don't know what's the right formula for how to get through this day to day? Some days we wake up and you're like, I got this, I feel great, I realize what's going on. And then the next day you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, what the hell? I'm living in a pandemic and I can't leave my house. So that is the nature in which we are going through this. And the first point is to honor how you feel and speak to the losses. So I want you all to take a moment and I want you to write down what have been the thoughts that you've been experiencing. What thoughts have you been experiencing? What feelings have you been experiencing? And how has that impacted your behaviors? So what thoughts you've been experiencing? What feelings? And how has that impacted your behavior? So how have your thoughts and your feelings impacted your behaviors? Please go ahead and take a few minutes to journal this, because it's going to build on the next thing that we do. If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. Just journal your thoughts, what feelings you've had, and how has that impacted your behaviors. Okay. So a key part of honoring how you feel, and we talk about this a lot in adaptive leadership language, which is the work of Ron Heifetz, is we have to honor the losses. And I've been using this language. A loss is essentially something that you lose as a result of going through an adaptive change. And so we want to honor those losses, and we want to speak to them so that you can let them go and grieve them. So I want to ask if a few of you would be open to share what have you noticed about your mindsets and feelings and how that's impacted your emotions? I'm sorry, your mindsets and your emotions and how that's impacted your behaviors.
Hello, Dr. Fisher.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Hamida Brown. I just wanted to share my how I feel. So I'm currently active duty military. So I've actually been going to work every day, and they've been telling us lately that we may have to deploy and help out other hospitals in the U.S. So that's one of the things that's going on through my mind, is that I have kids at home. So who's going to take care of my kids if I have to leave? I've been feeling a little bit anxious and stressed about it. And the way that it's impacted my behavior is that I noticed that I've kind of distanced myself from a lot of people, because at work it's a lot of panic. It's something we talk about every day, and I don't like bringing that home to my kids. So I kind of keep a lot of that in, and that's just how I've been dealing with this whole thing.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. I recognize you all are in a space of pure strangers, and I just essentially asked you to open the door to vulnerability. And so I thank you all for trusting me to take you on this space of raw vulnerability with strangers. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for serving our country. And we're gonna just say thank you in advance for the work that we know that you're gonna be doing on our behalf. Anyone else?
Hi, Dr. Anise. This is Joy Evans. Hi, everyone. Are you able to hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I would say for myself, there are feelings of being overwhelmed because it has personally affected me. So it's one thing when you hear about others or, oh, I heard, or, oh, I read this article, but when you have a sorority sister whose husband died at 43 because of it, when you have another sorority sister who had to deliver her child by herself because her husband tested positive, and because she was exposed, no one could be in the room. When you have 3 bishops and pastors in Flint, Michigan, which is where I'm from, die because they were at a Church of God in Christ convention. All of them were together, a jurisdictional meeting. All of them were together. All of them got, affected or infected, I should say. And then you have a lot of them passing away. And one of them, I knew his daughter, who is now deceased as well. So when you have, and a minister that I served with diligently, her and her husband, tested positive. A pastor that I'm very close to is in the hospital because he tested positive. And so to have very close people affected by it's becoming overwhelmed. So what I've done is I have decreased social media, which I believe in that anyway. I've decreased the amount of social media, how long I'm on social media, as well as watching the news or even reading the news, and have tried to instead ensure that I'm filling myself with the word or with sermons or with praise, worship, whatever the case may be. And I've also, like Hamida said, I've also become distant, whereas trying to put my phone away. And sometimes if there's a text message, I am like, oh, who's texting me now? Like, I don't feel like being bothered because I just need to reset. So that's what I would say for myself.
Wow. Thank you, Hamida, for sharing. And also Joyvina, my heart, you had many of the ladies I saw nodding as you were sharing, because that's just how real this pandemic is. We're starting to see it hit home to us in many different ways. I'm sorry for your losses. Was there another person that wanted to share before excuse me?
I was going to share. that the similar kind of thoughts I've kind of questioned. I'm like, why and how is this happening to us? And I think that having some similar experiences, as Joy mentioned, with this being very close to home, to friends, just very sad and feeling overwhelmed in the ways that I've had to, make the shifts for students and kind of moving things from in person to online, and having my son home full time. It's just been a lot. And so I noticed that I've had a range of feelings, or I guess I've been exhibiting behaviors of wanting to rest more and just feeling the need to just be replenished that way. I've also found that I've been very irritable, but I've also been more kind. So when I do go to the store to grab some things, I never knew how much I would appreciate those experiences. And so just smiling and nodding at people in the aisles, being very kind and appreciative to the folks at the stores that are working, and just enjoying like the sun on my body as I take a walk. I would have never imagined in January that I would be taking these things. So I don't know. I just never would have imagined that this is how March would have been as we entered this new year. So just being more kind and more patient with everything when I can.
Thank you, Tachi, for sharing that. And I believe many people can relate to the range of emotions that you felt, but also just the small ways in which people are practicing gratitude and appreciation. I don't think anybody could have imagined us ending up in a pandemic that is so global. And it's rocking and shaking every foundation, you know, as they say, like everything that can be shaken is being shaken. From you know, our institutions that we depend on, to our relationships, to us being able to, you know, feel like we can predict what's happening, which is why I wanted to bring us together to say that in order for us to get through this pandemic, it's gonna require a lot of experimentation, which means it's going to require not only you honoring your feelings and your emotions and everything that's going on with you, but it's also going to require us trying different things to figure out what works best for you. This is for those who are personalities that like control or like to have a formula for how things should work and be. That's not going to work during this pandemic. It's not going to work in this season. It requires us being able to have what we call you know, this sort of adaptive work, experimentation. Because what happened is that we've all had a disorienting dilemma, which is this pandemic. We realized from having this disorienting dilemma, the pandemic, that some things are working and some things are not going to work in this pandemic, right? Everyone has had that moment of like, oh, this way that I function is not going to work during the pandemic. Just raise your hand if you've had that aha moment with yourself. Like, there's some parts of me that I got to change because it's not going to work. If you've had that aha moment to yourself, just raise your hand so I can see. That's a good thing, because that's a recognition of where we are, which is that in order for us to get through this thriving, we're going to have to take on new roles, new relationships, and new ways of being. And with that means that you are going to, over time, build up that confidence again in these new ways and these new roles, because we are creatures of habit and we get comfortable with the way that we have been. But the key part of going through an adaptive challenge, and I use this language because it's what we're going through, we have to change our mindsets and behaviors in order to get through this. Is the key thing about this is that you keep what works and you have to discard what doesn't. So part of it is you got to keep what's working for you and be willing to let go of things that are not working. Just like any species that adapts, the species keeps part of what works for itself and then it adds on new things for where they're trying to go. So I want you to think about, isn't she so cute? I want you all to think about, for your own self. I'm going to get to the tools and resources, but I'm grounding us first. I want you to think about and be honest with yourself. What strategies can you keep? What strategies are working for you right now? If you think about how you live your life day to day, what are the strategies that's working for you? I want you to write them down. What's working? Because everything isn't broken. And part of when we are in crises, we have to remember to take hold and stock of the things that are of value to us. I don't want you to, I'll tell you what I tell my coaching clients and students. Don't start judging yourself about all the stuff that's not working. Stay in the learning mindset, no judgment. What's working? Was everyone able to identify at least 2 to 3 things that's working for you, strategies that's working for you to get through this pandemic? Raise your hand so that I can see where you are. Go ahead and raise your hand if you're able to identify so I can see through. Okay. Now I want you to think about what gaps have emerged. Meaning, where are you realizing I need to do some things differently? I want you to write down those gaps where you're realizing, hey, this part of what I'm doing isn't working. No judgments, just write it down. And I need you to write this down because we're going to use this for a later activity. Okay. 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 Go ahead and wrap it up. So keep that list in front of you. I'm going to share with you what I think could be one way of you thinking about how to carry yourself through this pandemic. Again, this is what I talked about, the adaptive experimentation. I'm going to share with you one way that I believe could help you work through this. Okay? Sounds good, ladies? Any questions before I hop into the meat? Okay. So I want to first and foremost start off. This slide is going to be very familiar to Allison and several other people that's either worked with me coaching or in my conscious leadership class, is that we have power and choice in every situation. You have power and choice in every situation. It's up to you to decide if you want to use them. There are a couple of nuggets I want you to take away from this. This is one of them. None of us are operating without power. And the one thing that grounds you when you are in a pandemic, when you are in any type of crisis situation, is to remember that you have power and choice in every situation. And now it's going to be up to you to determine whether or not you want to use it. And when I say power, I'm referring to how you use your mind, your behaviors, and your emotion, how you deploy those 3 things. Now, people usually say, Anise, I can't really control what thoughts come in my mind. And that's true. But you can choose how long you let a thought sit in your mind and whether or not you let it build a picket fence with the house. So you can choose whether or not you want to let your mind sit in fear-based thoughts or negative thoughts. So we do have power and choice in every situation. What I want to introduce to you is a way of being in the world, which I call conscious leadership, which is essentially you orienting yourself to operate from a place of trust and love versus fear and doubt. How many of you feel like you are operating a lot in fear and doubt? Just raise your hand and be honest with me. You feel like fear and doubt is running rampant in your life right now? Okay. Okay. Thank you for being honest. The first thing that, excuse me, when I talk about trust and love is that it is how you look at yourself. It is you trusting yourself. It's you using your power to trust yourself. Because when you trust yourself and you trust your voice, that's gonna instantly give you a boost of one, love to yourself. But we can choose to use our power to invest in trusting ourselves, and I'm going to talk about that. Or we can choose to use it to invest in fear and doubt. I'm going to encourage you not to invest in fear and doubt. I'm going to tell you how to deal with fear and doubt when it comes knocking at your door, but I'm going to encourage you not to invest in it. When you choose to use your power from a place of trust and love, that is going to position you to be in a place of, first and foremost, realizing that you are enough. So our mindset influences our emotions, it influences our behavior. They all run together. What you're thinking is going to impact what you're feeling is going to impact your behavior. When we operate from a place of trust and love, you start with an asset mindset. You see yourself as I am enough. When you trust yourself, do you believe you're enough? When you're trusting yourself, when you're making decisions based on self-trust. That mindset also is the belief that this is the best solution I have in the moment. And this is what I started out with. This is adaptive experimentation. We are trying to figure out what's going to work for you to get you to and through this pandemic, which means that you're only making your best solution in the moment. You'll try it out. If it doesn't work, you'll discard it and you'll try something else. But this is the best guess that you have in the moment for how to handle this particular situation. When you orient your mind from a place of self-trust, you then channel emotions of, of peace. Even when we have to be bold and courageous, you are channeling a level of peace because you are believing in yourself in that particular moment. It also channels compassion for yourself, which leads to behaviors of bravery. This is operating in the highest version of yourself. When you're operating in trust and love, you're operating in the highest version of self. Just think about the last time you trusted yourself. Were you brave when you trusted yourself? Just kind of nod your head and let me know. When you trusted yourself, did you feel like you could accomplish whatever it is you needed to accomplish? What type of emotions did you have when you did that? And people, just unmute yourselves. I got to stop talking for a second because my asthma's kicking in. What type of emotions did you all experience? Just unmute yourself and tell me the emotions you experienced.
Confidence.
Okay.
Productivity.
Okay. Thank you.
I second confidence.
Confidence. Okay. Thank you.
I would say bravery.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Definitely confidence, for sure.
Exactly. In order to get through this pandemic, we have to be at a place where we're orienting ourselves in trust and love, trusting yourself, self-trust. Because when we operate in fear and doubt, again, it's asking yourself, how do you want to use your power, your mindsets, emotions, behavior? The moment you start letting doubt and fear run rampant in your life, the initial mindset is, I'm not enough. So think about the last time you were sitting in fear and doubt. You probably saw yourself through a deficit lens, right? That then usually starts the worst case scenario playing in your head, which then starts to channel the anxiety that happens. You all are probably thinking, I was just feeling all this 2 hours ago. The anxiety. And then that usually starts to prompt behaviors of status quo and instability. Whenever you're letting fear and doubt run rampant, you're unstable. And likely you do stick with the status quo, or you kind of waffle back and forth. That is operating in a lower version of yourself when you are sitting in the place of fear and doubt. So you always have a choice on how you want to use your power source. You can go on the left side with the trust and love, or you can go on the right side with the fear and doubt. I'm going to show you how to do this in 4 easy steps. But does anybody have any questions before I go to the next slide? Are you following where I'm going with this and how you have to orient yourself to get through this pandemic?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I see some people in the chat box. Okay. This is just a definition I share with you with conscious leadership, which is basically what I'm encouraging you to do is to push yourself to be in that space of trust and love versus fear and doubt. I'm going to show you how you can do this in 4 practices, 4 steps. And then we're going to take that area where you said you had the gap and we're going to work through that together. So these are my 4 consciousness raising practices. So again, if you don't remember anything I say, remember you have power and choice in every situation. You can ask, do you want to operate in trust and love or fear and doubt? And you have 4 practices. The first thing is choice. Remember, I started with this. You have choice and power in every situation. Choice is asking yourself, how do I want to use my power, or how am I using my power? You just ask yourself that question in a moment. You know, I encourage my coaching clients, even my students, just to put this in your cell phone. How do I want to use my power? You get to choose every time. When you ask yourself that question, that creates a level of presence. That's slowing you down in the current moment. What this pandemic has done is push everybody's life on speed 360. It's like you're watching a dubbing over and over again. And especially if you are watching the news, I don't encourage anybody to have CNN on or whatever station you watch, is to really limit your interaction that you're getting from the media, because it's just feeding constant momentum. And so the key to being able to operate more from a place of trust and love, and a key to being able to be more conscious and focused and present, is to slow yourself down. But when you ask that question, you automatically slow yourself down because you got to answer it. Because you really do have to stop and ask yourself, how am I using my power? You really got to stop and say, how am I? Now, people will say, Anise, I don't know. And then I'll say to you, what are your emotions? They're going to tell you how you're using your power. If you're in the place of negative emotions, the resentment, anxiety, you know you in fear and doubt. She's sitting on your shoulder. If you're feeling a level of peace, a level of compassion, you're operating from a place of enoughness. The third step is self-awareness. You're going to assess what's going on within you and outside of you. I'm going to give you specifics on how to do this. You're assessing what's going on inside. Remember the mindset, your emotions, your behavior. And then you want to pay attention to what's going on outside of you. That's going to allow you to do the 4th thing, which is intentionality, to make a purposeful choice for how you want to deploy yourself. These are just 4 things. How am I using my power? Okay, that's slowing me down. What's going on inside of me? What's going on in my mind? What's going on in my emotions? How am I behaving? What's going on around me that's causing this? Okay, now, I got all the data. Now, how do I want to act? Because I got a choice on how I want to act. Okay? So I want you to let me pause to ask you if you have a question before we go into this more interactive activity. Are you all following? See where I'm going here with this?
Yes.
You're welcome, Elenia. Okay, so I want you to go back to that area that I said, where do you see the gap? Remember you all earlier on, I asked you if you had a gap of a way that I said, pick an area where there's a gap, you need to act differently. Okay, I want you to take that gap and we're gonna walk through this 4-step process together, okay? So that's the gap area. The gap area is an area where I'm gonna be willing to guess fear and doubt is probably operating in that gap area. Am I right in making that assumption with you all as to why you need to change how you're behaving? Okay, so I want you to ask yourself, how are you currently using your power in that area where you say you need to change? Are you operating from a place in trust and love, or are you operating out of fear and doubt? More than likely it's fear and doubt, but how are you using your power? Is it in fear or is it in trust? In that gap area. Next, I want to ask you, how do you want to use it? My hope is that you say that you want to use it for trust and love. Okay? Now we're getting into the presence part of this, because we're slowing down now. I want you to start thinking about what emotions have you been feeling in this gap area? How have you been behaving in relation to that area? Let's go ahead and write that down. What emotions have you been feeling? How have you been behaving? Then I want you to write down what's going on in your environment that's causing those types of reactions. What's going on in your environment that's causing you to emote that way and behave that way? No judgments, just write down what's there. Mm-hmm. Next, I want you to write down, and this is where we're gonna move you to the trust part. What is in your control to address in this area? What's in your control? And what tools or resources do you have to help you handle this with confidence? What tools or resources do you have to help you handle this with confidence? If you need to add things like I might need to hire some childcare, or I need to read a book, or I need to watch a YouTube training, whatever, you might need to acquire some new things, that's okay too. But what do you have currently at your disposal with you that can help you handle this gap area with confidence? Okay. 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 Can I get one person to share what they learned from doing this sort of 4 step-by-steps.
Hi, Dr. Anise. This is Tina.
Hi, Tina.
I'm calling in from Toronto, Canada, and we've been at this a few weeks. And I had realized that one of the words I wrote down, what I was experiencing was indifference. And I thought that it was leading to inaction or a bit of rest. But then what triggered here was the word status quo. It might actually be coming from fear and doubt. Whereas I saw it initially when we started this session as just something I was experiencing, maybe the calm side of my way of dealing. And so now I'm realizing that this is actually something that I can control and address in the situation, and explore the feelings around that so that I can channel it into really resting with a free mind, and lifting the tension, so I feel like that it's not inaction, but it's actually purposely planning out my time and including that rest and release.
Thank you. Anyone else? What did you learn, and what can you do different? What did you learn? Did people actually see how they could behave differently? I'm trying to judge based on okay, I can't have to go by the feedback of your faces because you're not in front of me. Okay. Do you
I can go in. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I learned that it's true that you have to begin with your mindset. And just even if you don't feel like, you have the power, or even if you don't feel like you have the resources or you can do it, you still have to channel that mindset and just meditate and focus on that before you kind of trickle into how you're going to do it. Because it's taught me that the 2 emotions that I was feeling in this area was stress and anxiety. But it's actually something that I perceive that I'm good at once it's done, but in the beginning it's super stressful and I'm, having anxiety. And what I realized is my mindset in the beginning is like, oh my God, I have to have this done. It has to be this way. And that's operating in fear and doubt, instead of just pausing and saying, I can do this. And this is the best decision right now, for me trusting myself. So starting with just, I'm going to do the best I can do this, will help me start with the right emotions, and then help me throughout the way. Super helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to posit for you all here is that you are going to have the fear and doubt knocking at your door. We all will have it. What I'm trying to show you with these slides, and the last thing I'm going to talk about is a personal holding environment. But what I wanted to show you here is that just a tool so that you can slow yourself down and work through what it is you're experiencing. Because if not, we just sort of sit with what we're feeling and we just let it run rampant in our lives versus actually pausing and working our way through it. Because then you can actually see what you have control over, what you're capable of. And if you need to get help, you ask for help, but you will probably find that you actually have some ways that you can adjust in your own life that can help you solve the very thing you didn't think you could solve. Because at least now you know what resources you have and then where you need to get help from other people at. Make sense? Okay.
Dr. Fisher.
Yep, go ahead.
That's what I noticed in the exercise too, is writing things down, is that there are factors that I can't control, but then that are impacting my anxiety and my stress. But then there are other factors like not eating well and not going to bed at a reasonable hour or having a routine that I can control. and that would help me manage that stress and anxiety better on a day-to-day basis. So control the things we can control in a healthy way.
Yeah. Thanks, Allison. My heart to you. She's in my class. She's a phenomenal, phenomenal leader, education leader. The key is, especially for those of you that have young people, I really believe we have to also ask our young people, especially if you have kids, obviously age appropriate, what's going on with them, because I think we forget about our young people. We think we're the only people experiencing it, but we forget about kids. Your kids have also, or nieces and nephews have also had their lives disrupted, just like you have. And so we have to tend to them. And granted, you have to make this age appropriate for them, which I'll give you some tips on how to do that with the personal holding environment. But please, let's not forget about our young people. So I just want to summarize this quickly for you. We did a checking in with yourself, and we honored where you were in the moment. That's what we started off with. Checked in where you were, we honored where you are. We talked about having power and choice in every situation, and you have two pathways. Which way do you want to go? To trust and love, or fear and doubt? And then I gave you 4 practices to be able to do this at any given time, with choice, presence, self-awareness, intentionality to slow you down. I want to spend the last of our time together talking about how do you create a personal holding environment. The reason I didn't start with the personal holding environment, because I can tell you these 3 things, but if fear and doubt is running rampant in your mind, you're not going to do any of them. So before we talk about the environment, we have to work through the fear and the doubt that would prevent you from creating a personal holding environment. So I'm ending with this, and I actually love the concept of a personal holding environment. I'm so sorry. So one of the things that we talk about in adaptive leadership is that when you are being put in a situation where you have to change your mindsets and your behaviors, it's a very challenging process. And so think about your personal holding environment as like your personal container for leading you through this change. That's what a holding environment is, your personal environment. This is something that you can talk to your kids about or other young people in your life. The first thing you do to create an environment, a holding environment, keeps you stable and it keeps you grounded throughout this change process, throughout this pandemic. The first thing you want to do is that you want to be able to have anchors. An anchor is something that can ground you in the moment to bring you back to reality. The 3 ways that I do anchors, number 1 is I would write down what I'm grateful for. That's an instant item to be able to ground you, to let you know that the world isn't as bad as it seems right now. Because the pandemic, we all know, will do that sometimes. The second thing is know what brings you peace and do it in that moment. The third anchor is what makes you laugh. For me, I know this is probably not appropriate, but some of the interesting ways our president has responded to the pandemic it's hilarious to me. I know some people it's not funny to them, but I have one clip that I watch that'll ground me because it just brings me a little bit of humor. These anchors is what you can do with young people, because we got to help them to create a personal environment so that they can stay grounded. You can ask your kids, like, if you start feeling really sad, write down 3 things that you're grateful for. That's giving that young person or your family members that tool right there in that moment. That's the anchor. The second thing is to have a sanctuary. These are daily renewal practices. You need to do something every day that's going to put you in a relaxed state. Now, some of you all I know have kids. That might mean you go in and take that 20-minute shower and they don't knock on the door unless it's fire, flood, or blood. If it's not fire, flood, or blood, don't bother me. You know, that they always know that means emergency. But you need some sort of practice that you do every day. For me, I have prayer and meditation. I do it 3 times a day. I put something on my calendar in the middle of the day, and I've shared this with my students and my coaching clients. I highly recommend having built into your cell phone a pause for the middle of the day. Because the middle of the day to me is when things seem to hit the roof, and it seems like all the preparation I did in the morning have gone out the window sometimes. So having that pause factor in the middle of the day, it could be 10 minutes to stop, go for a walk, whatever you're doing. But you need a sanctuary practice every day. The last thing to create your personal holding environment is you need an objective processing partner, which is called a confidant. A confidant, I know there are people here on this call that work together. They're not usually people you work with. Confidants are people who are independent of your work life, but they only have an investment in you. There's no conflict of interest, because you need to be able to speak what's really going on in your life. You want to be able to share with this person your fear and doubt, how you're grappling with this, things that you're trying that's working, that's not working. And I say they should be objective because it may be your partner or spouse, it may be somebody else. But you definitely want to make sure it's somebody that has a genuine interest and care and concern for you to help you process what's going on. And this is especially important for us who are singles, who live alone, because at a time when we are in isolation, it can become very lonely. So we want to be making sure that you are connecting with a confidant throughout this time, so that you have someone to process this through. And they're just going to be your rock and your resource and your support. Your confidant should not be the person that drains you when you look at the cell phone and they're calling. That's not the right confidant, because that's not the right person for this. You don't want to feel drained. You want to create a mutual relationship of supporting one another. Okay. So I'm going to, so this wraps the presentation. This personal holding environment is going to be important for you to do these things every day, because they're going to help you be able to continue to usher and do the things that I talked about earlier on in this presentation. I'm going to open it up for questions. And I have a bonus slide in case the question doesn't come up. I have a bonus slide so I can share the information, but I'll wait to see if it comes up. Does anybody have any questions about anything I shared? Just unmute yourself and we'll go from there. Any questions about anything I shared? Anything else that's out there in your mind that you need support with or coping skills with about this pandemic? Okay. Please hop off if you have to go. This is, I know I said it was going to be an hour. Any other questions? None? Wow.
I'll ask.
I know some of y'all on here. That means I've done my job.
I'll ask a question.
Go ahead.
This is Pamela. I guess my question is that, do you have a technique? Like, I feel like when I get overwhelmed with this, it's usually like a ball of like overwhelm. Like, it's hard to even like pull out what single thoughts to workshop. So I was just wondering if you have any tools or techniques for that.
Okay, Pamela, you know, we've worked together in the past, so I want you to be specific. Give me the exact, paint me the real scenario, and we're going to work through it together.
I mean, I run my own business, and it'll happen like in the middle of the day when I notice that I'm like not doing anything because I'm so overwhelmed.
Okay.
And then I'm like trying to work through what's happening, but it's too big. Like I'm not sure how to like break it down.
Mm-hmm. So when it's the middle of the day and you find yourself not doing something and you say you've gotten overwhelmed, what has happened prior to? So let's just go back to the last time that you had this experience.
I mean, it's usually like something in the, like I'll like take a glimpse at something in the news or get a piece of information from somebody. Like I feel like I'm good at making my bubble until I get a new piece of information, and then that kind of breaks through the bubble.
Okay, so let's just give me a specific. Take me there. Like, tell me someone calls you and was like, oh, have you seen this? We're at 10,000 deaths in America. What? Give me one specifics or the situation, and we're going to work through.
So right now, one of my aunts is sick and in the hospital,
Okay.
and then she's, battling the virus.
Okay.
So it's like I can manage to like make my bubble and do my daily practice, and then that like cuts through it, and then I'm like, having to start over. Yeah.
Okay, so let's work through that. Do you want to work through that so I can use this technique here on the slide to show you how to work through it?
Sure.
Okay, so you are, the slide that I have up is letting go of negative emotions. The song underneath the words I heard you saying is that what happens is that you've created the space where you have blocked things out, but then you get a piece of news that sort of overwhelms you, and that really kind of starts to expose some of the things that you may have sort of blocked out and stuff down. And so then you find yourself like unable to move and continue to do what you were going to be doing.
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing is, one, in that moment, don't judge yourself. And Pamela, because we've worked together before, I'm really big on that. When you are having an emotional response, in particular, an overwhelming emotion, the first thing you do not want to do is to start to judge yourself, because you are a human being. You have emotions, and we have negative emotions and we have positive emotions, but do not judge yourself, because the moment you judge yourself, the stronger the emotion becomes when you start judging yourself. So, number one, do not judge yourself. We're going to process letting it go, but just honor the emotion for what it is. It's how you feel in the moment. It's a very real feeling. Your aunt, someone that you care about very much, is battling a disease that we don't have a cure for. No one is going to be able to take that news and just operate like business as usual. Nobody. So that's one thing to honor and be truthful with yourself about. For all of us, when we get these news, like when we read the news or we get this type of news, is that no person, I don't care how skilled you are as a psychiatrist, psychologist, coach, or whatever, is bionic when we get that type of news. We have that real emotion. So in that moment, you want to name the emotion that you're experiencing. So that's the first part. So what emotion does this surface? So Pamela, I hope you have a pen and paper with you. What emotion did that situation, did your aunt being in the hospital surface? What emotion did that surface for you?
Sadness.
Okay. Any other emotions?
Fear.
Okay. So sadness, fear. Anything else?
I guess frustration, like over the situation.
Okay. So sadness, fear, frustration. You writing these down, Pamela?
Yes.
Okay. Sadness. So why do you feel sadness? I'm going to the second one. I feel X emotion because. Why do you feel sadness?
Fear of losing a family member.
Okay. Why do you feel that fear? You feel sadness, fear. Why do you feel fear because?
I think because it makes it really real, like like officially touching my life, and then I'm like, who's next?
Okay. You said you feel frustration. Why do you feel frustration?
At how poorly I feel like we are preparing for this, you know, as a country.
Okay. I'm writing this down at the same time. Are you writing this down?
Yes.
Is there any other emotions that we need to write down that you're feeling?
No, I think those are the main ones.
Three. Okay. So what we're going to start to do, that's the first thing you do. Name the emotion and why you're feeling it. The next thing we're going to do is to release small aspects of the emotion. So what I'm going to do is all the responses that Pamela just gave me for why she was feeling these emotions, I'm going to start to ask her if she can let them go. Okay. Pamela, can you let go of your wish that your aunt is not in the hospital?
Like, can I let go of the sadness?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit sometimes, and then it comes back.
So I want you to, so I said, can you let go of your wish that your aunt is not in the hospital? Because that's what's prompting the sadness. Because you don't want her to be in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So can you let go of your wish that she's not in the hospital?
I can let go of the wish, yes.
Because the reality is she is in the hospital. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm asking you, the reason why I ask you to let go of that, because we can't change it. She's in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So a part of the letting go process is being able to honor the reality of what's happening.
That makes sense.
Right? So, because what happened is that we form attachments to the way things should be, but we don't have control over the outcome. But if we stay attached to the way I want it to work in my head, that's gonna keep you stuck in that emotion.
Yeah.
So you said you have a fear of who's next. That's why you feel fear, right? Who's gonna be next? Can you let go of the question, who's next? And if you can't say no, and I'm gonna work you through it, because these people might not be able to say yes, and I got to show them what happens when they can't say yes. So
let's say no. Let's say no. Work me through it.
No? Okay. So tell me, why can't you let it go?
Because I keep thinking about it.
No. Why can't you let go of who's next?
I guess because I feel like absolutely zero control.
Okay.
And so it's like the only control I can hang on to is to worry.
Mm-hmm. So what we've uncovered is that the actual fear, the root of the fear, is you can't let go of the control. Is that right?
Yep.
So can you let go of controlling who's gonna go in the hospital?
I think I can work towards that.
Can you let go of controlling who's going in the hospital?
Yes.
Why can't you let go of who controlling who's going in the hospital?
I guess I keep thinking that I can do something about it if people
So
listen.
can you?
No, I
Can
can't.
you control who goes into the hospital?
Nope, not even a little bit.
So if you can't control who goes in the hospital, you can't control that. You just said you can't control who goes into the hospital. Can you let go of your control of who's going in the hospital?
Yes.
How so? How can you let that go?
By realizing that I don't have that control anyway.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So you can let it go.
Yes.
Okay. The last thing we had on this was the frustration at the poor handling of this pandemic. So can you let go of how the administration has handled the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I have to. Yeah, like there's.
There's no way you can control it.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you let go of your attachment to the fear?
Yes.
Can you let go of your attachment to the frustration?
Yes.
Okay. Can you let go of your attachment to how you're supposed to respond to this pandemic? And supposed are in air quotes.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that's still hanging out that you're holding on to?
No, I think you kind of covered all of it.
Okay. Is there anything left?
No, a big part of it was that judgment piece.
Okay. So what I walked Pamela through was basically we took all of her emotions and we just broke off pieces of it. I couldn't, you saw what happened when, and I let this happen on purpose because I wanted Pamela to be Pamela, and what every other person would do is early on, like the second question of can you let go of the sadness, she had a reaction like, how dare you ask me that question right away, right? That's unrealistic. She's not gonna be able to let that go that early on because she hasn't gotten to the root of what's going on. The reality is that Pamela has an aunt that is sick, so she is gonna have a level of sadness. She's not going to be able to release that sort of the control part of that sadness until we get to the root of it, which is that she realized she was trying to contain and control all these things that she had no control over, which didn't allow her to just really be able to have just a genuine sadness for her aunt being in the hospital, but not staying in the sadness. Did this make sense to people? Do you feel like you can understand how I went through the letting go part of it? It takes time, and it takes actually writing this down that this is yourself. So, but this is a way for you to be able to start to release the negative emotions. She is going to feel that sadness. Her aunt is in the hospital. It is critical because she doesn't know what's going to happen. But the way for Pamela to be able to be able to get to the point where she can release it is to realize that she doesn't have control over the outcome of her aunt. And so the only way to really is to be in a place of her flipping to a place, not to the fear and doubt, which is feeding the sadness part, but being able to trust herself and trust that, my aunt is in the blessed place she can be in right now. This is the best solution we have right now is for her to be in the hospital because she can't care for her aunt, neither can the family, because the people who have the most knowledge are the folks at the hospital. So she just got to be able, that's when she can ask herself, how do I want to use my power in this situation, which is just to trust this is the best we got right now for my aunt, which is to be in the hospital. That's how she flips it to the place of trust. I hope this helped, Pamela.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. I am aware of the time. We are way over, but I'm happy to. I'm gonna end the video now, but I'm happy to stay on in case people have any other questions that they just want to hang out for me to answer, and I'm happy to stay on the call. The rest of you all, I don't want to keep you on the call.